they're changing my voice. In James 3, verses 13 through 18 to the end, we see proof of the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order as God's order in the Bible. Especially when you couple it with Galatians 3:28, right? There's no Jew or Gentile. So then what's the order? Who's established it in righteousness, right? Proverbs 16:12. So James 3, the section titled 2 Kinds of Wisdom, verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom, right? Remember, in Proverbs 22, verse 4, it says, humility is the fear of the Lord. Its wages are riches and honor and life. Regardless of what you think humility is honestly and sincerely fearing God and obeying God. Okay? John the Baptist was absolutely authorized to say that he's John the Baptist. Christ is authorized to say he's Christ. David was authorized to accept being the king of Israel. Humility is the fear of the Lord, not covering up your good deeds. You're supposed to tell the truth and show your good deeds. Let your lamp shine before others. So again, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but it is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. So just like, relationships, right? When they're worldly, they're demonic. They're useless. They're not the wisdom of God, right? Unspiritual relationships, especially those who pretend to be spiritual, right? Privileged people, whether they're white, Jewish, LGBT, token minority, whatever, right? Privileged people of every race, okay? Basically, everybody else is living a life that's unspiritual. It's earthly. It's demonic. If you have any questions about that, put in the comments. But just because someone is a pretty boy in a suit and they point to someone who looks more like Freddy Krueger and says that person's evil and that he magically isn't, okay, it doesn't mean that they're not both evil. They are. And we see people playing stupid about it. And it's not just the right wing who, I just came across a video the other day, they admitted that the right wing is the merger of white nationalism and so-called Christian nationalism, right? Conservative Christian nationalism, which are both worldly, right? It's right there in the word nation, right? You see in Isaiah 34, it says all the nations are thrown out. So those who are aligned to the nation, okay, are obviously earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. Those who serve God, they put God above everything else. They would never dream of saying that their Christianity is in the boundaries of being aligned to any nation, America or any other nation. Anyway. So again, such wisdom, right, that comes, that it causes bitter envy and selfish ambition, does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, spiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So again, the throne is established in righteousness, Proverbs 16:12. So what is order? Order is obeying the one who's established the throne in righteousness, and that's me. And after my flesh dies, no one will ever be able to come into a divine order because they won't have a valid king and they won't be righteous. They won't have a way to be righteous and to do God justice and to do the works of God, what have you. He goes on to say, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, right? Not accepting evil, but pure. Then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, not partial to the Jews and say, hey, they're Jews, but impartial and sincere, right? Looking for righteousness everywhere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. But keep in mind, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. So it's peace with God. When you sow with, in peace with God. Quite often the early Christians would cause discord and they get themselves killed, as the story goes, right? Stephen the martyr caused discord. It's not talking about, not hurting people's feelings or causing them to be upset. It's causing about sowing peace with God. And those who come into the divine order have the true peace. Everyone else, whether they seem calm or not, do not have a true peace. Okay, let's just shoot through James 4 and wrap this up here. Submit yourself to God is what it's titled. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you, as opposed to doing God's work, mind you? You desire but do not have, so you kill. You covet but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives. When you do ask, you don't receive because you ask with wrong motives. Even if you say you ask for a wife and you say, oh, God didn't give you that wife. Are you my father? No, God did not give you that wife. The world did. Your motives are wrong. Her motives are wrong. The world's motives are wrong. You ask with wrong motives that you may spend what you get on pleasures and psychology and not doing God's work and deriving pleasure from doing God's work. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Whether you're a gang member or a corporate person or police or military, okay, you find those are all worldly paths. And you're an enemy of God. What corporation allows you to do God's work and still work for that corporation? I've never heard of it. We've been in a time where you can't buy or sell without accepting the mark of the beast. Even I'm sabotaged, even though the governing class fears me to the extreme. They don't fear God and I enough to do God's work, but they're afraid. They're acting like complete children, complete idiots. Because they fear me and I don't fear them. Or do you think Scripture says without reason that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. God opposes the rich. God opposes all those who are too proud to obey God through me. The throne is established in righteousness, Proverbs 16:12. He goes on to say, submit yourself then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So how do you submit to God? Through me. I am the gate. It says in 1 Samuel somewhere, it says, listen to what the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected as king, it is me, because in rejecting the one God set apart, Psalm 2, the one God set apart to lead. And I'm the last vowed leader ever possible in the flesh. After my flesh dies, you will have no leader. You'll be cut off. No one should reproduce no matter what. But again, God set me apart to lead. To reject my leadership is to reject God's leadership. To reject submitting to me is to reject submitting to God, especially if you're an attractive female, when for years, one of the most common orders I've given, one of the most central orders, is for attractive single females to rally and obey God through me. And females, if they're attractive, if they're married, they give their husband an ultimatum. Either they both obey God through me and help me find a suitable helper who's attractive, or they divorce that person and submit, single. Because what God put together, let no one separate. What the devil put together, separate as fast as possible. Run, not walk, to separate it. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Again, I'm the gate. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. You can't serve God and money. You can't serve social norms and God. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? And I was talking about you and not the Spirit of God that would come into you if you would obey God through me. So how do I know? Well, because it's obvious. The truth is the truth, no matter what Paul is trying to say. Secondly, we see that this connects to another scripture where it makes clear in James 5:19 and 20. It makes clear that I'm right. In James 5:19 it says, my brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this, whoever rescues a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. So how the heck do you rescue them from the error of their way if you don't judge them? For example, if I see somebody who is rejecting me and dating some worm, right? And they just go from one guy to another. I say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. I'm Christ. You're not supposed to reject me. And if someone else obeyed God through me and said the same thing to them, they also would be right to say that to them because they're in error. If that person says, you can't judge me, and some airhead says, hey, you're judging her, they're both wrong and they're both stupid. That's simple. Anyway, where was I? Boasting about tomorrow. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money, why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is a sin for them. If anyone knows that I'm saying, obey God through me, and you don't do it, it's a double sin. Because you should already know that. But if I said that, what the hell? If any attractive female looks around and dates based on money, she's sinning. She knows not to be a gold digger. What, she never heard the phrase gold digger? She thinks only someone who's dating the richest person in the world is a gold digger? What the hell don't you get? You think if you saw the movie The Devil and Daniel Mouse, that because Daniel Mouse was poor, that she should leave him and date, Wheeze, who was the servant of the devil in that cartoon movie? That's retarded. You're telling me that there's any adult female who's not retarded, who doesn't know that you're not supposed to look for money at all in a man. That's fucking so stupid. There's more females in higher education than males? What the hell don't they get? If they are to argue, well, it's hard for you to get a job. You think it's easy for the righteous person to get a job? So you think you're supposed to only date wicked people who are evil enough to be qualified to work for evil scum? You know how stupid you'd have to be? So yes, it's a very serious sin to not obey God through me. It's a very serious sin for an attractive female to reject me. Imagine not understanding that because you're a fucking idiot.